Okay, we're good.
Okay, so the recording, I see the little red light. So I want to thank everyone, as per usual here for Economic and Municipal Services. Thank you for taking the time out to come to our meeting tonight. Lots of good things tonight. My name is Maria Torres. I am the chair of this committee. And normally when we're in person, we go around the table and we do a round of introductions, but I know that just gets really confusing here when we're all just like little squares and like the Brady Bunch. So we'll just pass on that. But, prior to talking, if you can use the raise your hand feature, which is I think nobody's on the phone, right? I think everybody's here. If you have questions by the little reactions, I think there's a little raise your hand, and we'll try to get to everybody in that order. That way, we can have good interactions tonight. And so first up on our agenda is Justin Lamorella of Department of City Planning. And he's here to talk about the open restaurant policies. So Justin, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Maria. So as Maria said, I'm Justin Lamorella. I'm a senior borough planner from the Department of City Planning in the Bronx office. I'm joined tonight with colleagues from the Department of Transportation. I believe Keith Kalb and Teresa Cruz are on the call as well. And
Hey, Justin, just before you get too far into this,
Sure.
We're still waiting for Navardo Lopez to join.
Oh, okay.
He's giving tonight's. I'm here for other issues. I'm not here for the text amendment, so I don't have the information for this in front of me.
Okay, so should
You,
we?
you can go ahead, but I don't have the DOT portion of this.
Yeah, that's fine. So we should wait for Navardo, and I don't know if the committee has other business before we get to this then, because I don't have too much to say before DOT's part.
Hold on a second. Give me Ralph. Can you put back on the agenda real quick on the screen? Because the next thing would be Keith and
Yeah.
DOT?
Yeah.
I think it was just Keith's way of bumping himself to the top. Can you believe that? That was dirty.
Sorry about it.
All right, so Navardo's going to be a little, like 5-10 minutes late, 15 minutes.
We're trying to figure that out right now.
All right. Okay. So let's move forward. I guess we'll do your presentation. Because we got a lot of things. I hope you're ready, Keith, because there's a lot. City DOT and DOT in general is on everybody's lips these days in this neck of the woods. So I know you're
That's
coming
good.
here to talk about some things, and we got comments.
That's good. That's very good.
Okay. All right. So we're going to Ralph. I forget. Do I have to have a vote to do number 2 instead of 1 to switch the agenda around, or can we?
Yeah,
Is
you
he
can
or
make
Ralph?
a motion for it if you want to get technical, but you're the committee chair, so we're just moving things around momentarily. It's they're both here, so if you want to start with item number 2, make the motion and have your committee vote on it.
Okay. So I'm making the motion to start with agenda item number 2, so that since they are present in full. And does anybody second the motion?
I second the motion.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so then we're switching it. So Keith, the floor is yours.
Now let me go back and unmute myself. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. Keith Kalb, Deputy Borough Commissioner, Bronx DOT. I'm joined by my senior planner, borough planner, Teresa Cruz, who is on the call. Yes, I see Teresa. You guys, Ralph asked us to come here to discuss a couple of issues that you guys are having in the borough, and we wanted to update you on a couple of the safety improvement plans that we announced but have not well, we have started some, but we're in the works with some of these. So I'll get into the safety improvement plan projects that we discussed with you guys many times. The Westchester Avenue safety improvement, or the bike connection, the protected bike connection from Southern to Whitlock, that is on hold for right now. We are still working on some of the community's feedback requests as it relates to finding some angle parking and changes to the proposal that were on 167th Street that the community was not really in favor of. We're trying to work those things out internally before we move towards implementation. So for right now, it looks like we'll probably run out of implementation season before we can move that forward, because it's a pretty big project. So it's likely going to slip until spring, and we'll come back, of course, to the committee or the board, whatever you guys feel, when we do come back. When we look to implement that. Intervale Avenue safety improvement, which was a school safety project for 165th, 167th Street. That project has started this week. You should have received a notification about the What's Happening Here flyer. If you did not, Ralph, please let me know. Cynthia, please let me know if you did not get the What's Happening Here flyer. That was the school safety project. We had the school support and the council member support on that. So that's moving forward. Fox and East 167th Street at Westchester Avenue. We installed the two stop signs, but the complete project is not finished. So we're working on that. And Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, but the second piece of this project is going to get bumped till 22?
Yes, that's correct. The extended pedestrian space will be next year.
Right, okay. And then everyone's favorite issue, the reconstruction and improvements of Del Valle Square. DDC should have notified you that the project is moving forward and that they are finalizing the design of the square now. And once there is actual movement, we'll come back to you guys with showing you what the final design is going to look like. Item A, city bike throughout the district. We still do not. I'm sorry. Was there a question? Hello? Sorry. City bike throughout the district. We know that you guys want some information and some data about the usage of the city bike in Community Board 2. We have asked our city bike folks to put that data together, and we will have the data for you shortly. We do not have it tonight. Any questions?
I just need a point of, I guess, reference, Madam Chair. No, Keith, no one's contacted me about the Valle Square. So you're the only one that's providing me updates, and I thank you for that. But I don't know who is it that I would need to contact to ask for updates. So
I mean, it's our project. It's in final design now. So that's ultimately that's the update. It's in final design. It's been given to the consultant. They're working on the final design with all the input that the community provided over the last couple of years. So it's in final design. That's all they're going to tell you, right? It's been handed off to the consultant. And once the consultant comes back with the final design, we'll come back to you and say, here's what we're planning to do. Here's what it looks like. Here's what the construction schedule looks like. And here's what the impacts will be. That's still to come.
that sounds good. Thank you, Keith.
Keith, yes. So in terms of the city bike,
Yeah.
and getting, I mean, I guess it's been a while since it's been installed, right? Are we on a year yet? It feels like a year.
It's
And
not,
we were
has not
told
been quite a year.
But close to it, right?
Close to, but we're still not completed with all the installations?
Well, I think some of our issues, especially in the peninsula side, is that there was, while I loved the idea that there should be, to less cars on the road, and we should look at transportation alternatives and things like that. I just feel like some of the areas where they put the bike stations, they took it way too many, and so we lost a ton of spots. And I don't know about if the usage even warrants that much. I mean, I think yes, I understand that there should be the availability for it, but like for example, Garrison and Monida, I think there's about 20 something bike stations. Meanwhile, there's another one located on Hunts Point and Lafayette, which is 2 blocks up, and then 2 blocks over you have more stations. So it's like really, and especially that block is a residential block. You got 3 big buildings, you got all these things going on there, and it lost probably more than the usual, amount for those bikes. So the sooner we can get this analysis in, we would greatly appreciate it, because I feel like there are some changes. 16 spots would have been fine, and you could have at least gotten another parking spot in there or something like that. I think they just took way too many. And
Okay.
I'll give you a chance to respond, and then I see Miguel has his hand up, and then Mile. Go ahead.
Before I move on to the questions, City Bike has been exceptionally popular throughout the city. People are using it all over the city, everywhere. But we'll get you those numbers, and we'll come back and give you an update on the usage in Community Board 2.
Okay, Miguel.
Yeah, no, I think, Madam Chair, you kind of asked the question. I was also going to ask about the analysis and the survey as regards to usage. I understand Mr. Cobb's statement about how it's popular, throughout the city, but I think that we would have a clearer picture if, in fact, that popularity existed in our area. And I was kind of hoping that analysis would have already been on the table for us to review and look over, because I remember we had asked for this several months ago. So yeah, you had already brought up this issue. That was my statement.
No, I noted. Thank you.
Okay, and Mile.
Thank you. Keith sort of noted on it, or he did. Thank you with the Delvise Square about, it's just my concern. My question would be like, how long do you, I guess, expect the consultants to take for the final design phase? Like, I don't even know what a reasonable time frame would be. So that might be helpful to know for us. Also, and I think you said so I'm just being redundant, I guess, but I think you said when you come back with that final design plan, you'll also be bringing like a timeline for the project with construction. And I know we would all really appreciate that, so that we have the most time to accommodate and shift the schedule for what happens at the plaza and everything that goes around it. And then, on my end, it's notifying businesses and things like that. So I just wanted to be encouraging of that coming with the final design plan. And then I'm just going to run quickly through it so I know I had it right. You said the Westchester Avenue safety plan is paused for now. Sorry.
I wouldn't say paused. I would say we're taking the feedback that we got from our walkthrough with Assemblymember Burgos, Councilmember Salamanca, and District Manager and Chairman Crespo. We're taking into consideration their feedback that we had with our walkthrough, as well as other circumstances in the neighborhood, the State DOT project, the Sheridan Boulevard, lots of factors. We're taking all that into consideration. The project is not paused on our end. It's just not being implemented right now. We're looking at the feedback that we got, and we're trying to make adjustments and see if it works based on the feedback that we have already received.
Okay.
So we're sort of retooling it a little bit if we can, if it works, and then figuring out if the analysis works. If we get the same safety benefits with the suggestions that we've received from the community.
Okay, great. So I'll direct the bid's concerns, I guess, towards those that you're already working with on that project. And then I guess my overall just concern, but it's nothing you can really address, is more the fact, like you just mentioned, that we have the state projects that are possibly coming in and starting soon. We have, you already started over on Intervale, which is good, but then Fox and East 167 and then Westchester Avenue. And, all of a sudden, I have to look from the business's perspective that they're just really struggling to get people to even come to the area because we already have what's going on the Bruckner. That's really hindering us. So I want to put it out there that we at the bid, and myself as a community member, would really appreciate if there is just as much coordination to make that as least restrictive as possible. But that's my notes. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your feedback, Miles.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Miles' last comments, Keith, I know a lot of what we're seeing now is because of the state DOT's project, but I don't know I know city DOT is kind of just there to assist with certain things in terms of the major parts, but like this past weekend, and I've sent emails to the state DOT folks, their lane closures, and knowing that they were doing these lane closures, there's absolutely no TEA agents, nobody, no traffic coordination, and so there was just gridlock on top of gridlock on top of, and you just look at all the different projects that are happening, the other lane closure on the Bruckner local, heading towards Barretto Street, where the cars have to make the left, is just has really been very difficult on people who live here. And so does city DOT have any hand or can help with anything, or is it just all state DOT?
So we work very closely with the state to try and mitigate the traffic issues that are inevitably going to come when somebody does construction and somebody does lane closures, right? But we have to carefully balance the need for these improvements. The state is spending a lot of money to make lots of improvements in this area. They're providing parks and access to green space, totally new infrastructure, and we need to balance that. I know that I've been to a couple of meetings with you guys where you asked them not to do banging at night and not do lane closures at night because of the loud noises that it was doing. So they pushed that movement to the daytime. They changed that procedure to happen at a different time, which impacts traffic. It's a very delicate balance that we have to take into consideration. Improvements are coming. The problem is if we let them close less lanes and have less impact, then the duration of the project is going to continue for many more years. Right? So it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Do we do it really quickly, or we do it really, really slow?
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and I know they're doing the stuff up top on the Bruckner, and all these things are all happening, and yes, you do them, and in 2 years we'll be very happy, allegedly, with all these changes, right? Because we're still not sure if this was really the greatest project in terms of what they did, but at least the traffic agents, at least having people there was so many issues that were just because there was nobody present to stop buses to take the light, or big trucks taking the light to make the turn and then stopping everything. This past from Saturday to today, there's been nothing but headaches with that, and I still don't see any traffic enforcement agents out to assist with any of those things. I'm still not seeing people, and it's just a big headache. And I think that aspect, I would, you would at least feel better if you at least saw traffic agents trying to manage that. But this past weekend, they left nothing. and
Fair
that should
enough.
have never happened. Okay.
Fair. That's fair.
Thank you.
I will reach out. Unfortunately, we don't control the traffic enforcement agents that work
Yeah.
for these projects. They work for the NYPD, and they're being paid by the state DOT. But I will reach out to the state, let them know that there was a failure with the traffic agents this past weekend, and they should have a liaison for this project, so that they give you updates, timely updates, and they should be the contact every day with reaching out to District Manager Acevedo to keep him up to date on what the traffic impacts on the community impacts. Are you guys?
And they do. They have a name, and I know Ralph, and I know we've been in an email chain with them. But it's I don't know. I don't know what the fall through was, and I had something in my head and I lost it. I'm sorry, but we do have that, and I know coming up there are going to be some reopenings, which will also, make us all a little bit more happier. There's going to be some lanes coming back online and some routes, which is great. But it's kind of like that Thanksgiving debacle last year, where again they had nobody present, and the busiest time of year for trucks coming in and out of Hunts Point. This past weekend just felt like another moment where the ball was dropped by state DOT in terms of that. And so I understand. I just want to know if there's any way you could assist us with that. So
I will reach out. I'll reach out again to the state and try and press them to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing.
Okay. I see a guy, right, whose camera, I just see his nose and glasses and a hand raised, and I see it's Bobby. Okay, Mr. Crespo, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And I'm sorry I'm late, but my phone, I left it in the house and I'm trying to catch up. But I caught the last bit of your discussion with Keith. And I know, Keith, it doesn't fall on you because you're city DOT. But in all true honesty, one of the reasons I'm late right now is because of the traffic. I don't know if everybody knows, I had a severe accident because there was no traffic agents around, to the point my car got totaled. I have my chest is messed up, my shoulders messed up. I mean, I am totally out of it. And seeing Maria's emails since last weekend, since Friday, and then again today, seeing a resident's email on Thursday or Friday, and then seeing again today the traffic mess that's out there with no traffic agents. When we were promised this project, Keith, with all due respect, I think that we've been patient enough with a lot of things, and this is just getting a little bit out of control now, where people are just taking us for granted, and it's not right. It's not right. I know it's not incumbent upon you. You're the city DOT, and I understand all of that, but something has to happen, with this thing. DOT has to put up, either city DOT or state DOT is going to have to put up traffic agents and sit with the board to show strategically where it belongs. Because honestly, that's one of the problems. That is one of the problems. I'm sorry. Thank you, Maria.
Okay. All right. So that was, that was the hard part of the night for you, Keith. All right. So, and again, I just really quick, I know, just to revisit with City Bike, I get it. It is a valuable thing, a valuable resource for a lot of parts of the city. I just kind of wonder about certain parts here because, I mean, I guess going to the market, maybe, because they're really meant just to, they're not meant for leisurely, right? They're meant to help you get to work and to get to certain places.
That's correct.
You have them right by trains and things like that. So it's just weird placement of all these bike things. And so that's just my question. But and that's it. And I see Miles has his hand up again, or is that still from before?
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Maria. Two other things. One, thank you very much, Keith and City DOT, because all summer, business districts have had a lot of challenges, and we've been dealing with a lot of agencies, and DOT has been really responsive to, signs that are down and broken meters and curbs and things like that. So we really appreciate that. I did want to ask, and I know it's not on your agenda, but I'm kind of putting it on yours for the next one, if possible. I've seen in other parts of the Bronx, there are areas of the sidewalk that are being painted to have scooters be allowed to park there. Is that something that would come through community board before being approved, or locations, or is that just something DOT can start doing? Or I don't know much about that.
So what you see in the eastern section of the Bronx, east of the Bronx River, outside of the city bike zone, is our e-scooter pilot program, which is a 2-year pilot program where we're not installing. We have 3 companies operating. Have 3 companies operating e-scooters in the East Bronx. And we worked with the communities to identify locations for the corrals. So we're not planning to bring them to Community Board 2 at this time. So right now we're not.
But we would know ahead, right?
Of course.
If it were. Okay.
Of course.
Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. So that was just a report. So if there's any other questions, Mr. DeRig, you're raising your hand physically. Okay, go ahead, John. Good to see you. Hope all is well. John, you're on mute still. You gotta unmute yourself.
You gotta unmute yourself, John.
How's that? You hear me?
Yes, we hear you, John. Go ahead.
Okay. The city bikes, they got them all in the street, taking up parking spaces. Can they put them on the sidewalk?
We can if the sidewalk is wide enough. Yes.
Because I've seen there's plenty of room on the sidewalk, and the bikes are in the street, and nobody's using them.
Yeah. So when we did this outreach and we placed the city bikes in locations, we did some virtual workshops and had the community give us locations that they thought were best. And based on that input, we determined whether we were able to install them on the sidewalk at certain locations. Not every location was feasible for a sidewalk city bike station installation. So we did have to do them on the street.
Well, that's my opinion, because I have people, talk about, knocking down the bikes to park their cars there. So I think it should look into it, because parking is a very delicate issue here. You can't hardly find a parking space, but when you have bikes taking up parking spaces, especially in front of businesses,
right,
it doesn't make sense.
It does make a little sense if you think about it in the context of micromobility. If more people have options other than a single-use vehicle, they will have better transportation options and less likely to use a single-use vehicle. So we can move more people with bikes and transit improvements than we can with single-use vehicles. So it actually does make sense to have 20 bikes taking up 2 parking spots or 3 parking spots, because you can only really move 3 or 4 people, and we can move 20 people with all those bikes. So as a transportation mode, it makes a lot more sense. And the usage of the street, it makes a lot more sense. We want to move as many people with as little infrastructure as humanly possible. That's the whole purpose of our agency.
Thank you.
Okay.
I believe the borough commissioner has joined us. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. and leave you in the capable hands of Navardo Lopez, Borough Commissioner
Keith,
Navardo
thank you
Lopez.
so much, Keith. Really
Good night,
appreciate it.
everybody.
Darissa, thank you, Darissa.
Yes.
Teresa's
Thanks,
going to stick
thanks.
around.
Oh,
Bye, everybody.
okay.
Good night, everybody.
All right, take
Good
care,
night.
Keith. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
All
Keith.
right,
Good night. Good morning. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for being late. I had this on my calendar for 6:30, so that's why I'm only joining now.
Right. Go ahead.
That's my mistake. My apologies.
Navardo, I would, any other time, I'd kind of be a little hurt because, we always used to meet at 6 o'clock for these meetings, but hey.
I know. I just I had it at 6:30, so then I came home, fed the kids, and then was like, okay, 6:30, here we go. But again, that's my mistake. That's not your fault. I apologize again for being half an hour late.
Okay, thank you for coming. I see, just really quick, I see Bobby has his hand raised, but then also, I've been remiss. If everyone can please, in the chat, write your name and your contact information, so this way we kind of have that attendance sheet of everyone who's here, and then in the future, if people need to kind of contact other folks, the office will have that. So if you could go to the chat and put in your name and your email information, and if you want your phone number, I guess. And then please do that. Okay, Bobby?
Also, wait a minute. Make sure you stay muted if you're not talking, and be mindful of whoever is speaking, please. So if you can keep yourself muted, that'd be great. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for recognizing me again and giving me a second opportunity. But the commissioner was not online when Keith was giving us the answer to the bikes that John DeRiggs was concerned with. And the commissioner has met with me and with Ralph, and he understands that we have had our concerns as to the locations of these bikes. We were never consulted. I'm sorry to disagree with Keith. We were never consulted on where these bikes should go. Just around my house, I got like 5 to 6 stations. I mean, that's oversaturation of these bikes. And secondly, and most importantly, I know that you can move a lot of people with the bikes and not so many with the cars, but this is a car community. And it appears that this administration is taking a position of being anti-car and not letting the people of this community have its own choice of whether they want to have a car or ride a bike. And everybody, just in my block alone, we have to wait to find space because there's space taken all over the place. On Longwood Avenue, on Westchester Avenue, at Bill Rainey Park, on Garrison Avenue, on Fail Avenue. I mean, all over the place. Southern Boulevard. I mean, really, it's an oversaturation of bike stations in Community Board 2. And I've spoken with the councilman. I've told the councilman already that this is not acceptable. Not to mention this other amendment that's coming up for the open restaurants, which are being created on the streets, which DOT gives the okay for, and taking more spaces out of our neighborhood, more car spaces when these open restaurants are there, and not to mention all of the plans that DOT has put together against Community Board 2, because I say it is against Community Board 2, in the fact of that you're changing traffic lanes, you're changing traffic patterns. Pretty soon people are going to have to be like the Jetsons, press a button and the car folds up and you put it in your pocket, because that's the only way we're going to be able to do this. Commissioner?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I thought you were just making a statement. Did you?
No. I'm telling you the way I hear it out there. I walk these streets every day. So does Maria. So does the district manager. Just about everybody that's listening in walks these streets every day. You guys don't. You guys don't even care to sit down with us and tell us this is what's happening. Where would you like to have it at? at SEPCO management. You got 20 bikes there. A block and a half away on Longwood and Southern Boulevard. You got another 20 bikes there. Right up the block on Westchester and Longwood, you got another 20 bikes. You're talking about 30, already 60 bikes in almost a 7-block radius. That's ridiculous. Tell me that's not oversaturation.
We are looking to, and forgive me if you've heard this before, but we are looking to have the same density of city bikes in every neighborhood throughout the city. We're not looking to treat certain neighborhoods differently than other neighborhoods for this program to work. There needs to be a similar amount of bikes and a similar amount of stations per resident in order for this to work, because the program has proven to be popular even in the Bronx. There has been a lot of usage. We're going to come back to you with data to show you the amount of usage that there's been in the year since we've implemented this program. So it's all a balancing act. I understand that a lot of people in this community drive, but a lot of people in this community don't drive. And everybody walks. Everyone has an interest in safe streets. Everyone has an interest in seeing traffic fatalities go down. Everyone has an interest, whether you walk, drive, take the bus, ride a bicycle. Everyone has an interest in making sure that these streets are safe for everybody. So I understand the frustration for not easily be able to find a parking spot the way you used to. As I've mentioned in the past, there are we're always looking to work with you to see maybe there are outdated regulations, maybe there's streets that we can convert to angle parking. We're always looking to partner with you to see what we can do to sort of, mitigate some of the losses that we've caused through some of the changes we're making. But, it's the responsibility of the agency to look out for everybody, whether they walk, drive, take the bus and bike. And we take that responsibility very seriously, as do you. This is not something that a burden shared alone by city agencies. Community boards are also very interested in making sure that everyone in their community board can safely get around. But it involves choices. There's a limited amount of roadway space. There's a limited amount of sidewalk space. And we have a lot of competing needs. And we're trying to do the best we can to balance those needs. With the open restaurants, I'm going to get into that a little bit, talking about what that means going forward. So I'm going to put that off until my presentation. But if you have more questions about City Bike, more questions about the project coming forward, I'm more than happy to answer those questions.
Just answer me, why is it that I drive through Community Board 1 and Community Board 3 and the saturation's not there?
Well, I would beg to differ, but I'm more than happy to pull out. I'm more than happy to pull out a map of those community boards in front of you and show you where the stations are.
Well, I would like to see it because
those community boards, and I'll say this, Mr. Chair, those community boards have more stations than CB2.
Come on, in a map, I just told you in 7 blocks, there's almost 60 bikes.
I'm going to show you maps, and we can sit down and take a look at it. And you'll see that the saturation is not just, you think this is just your community, and I have to beg to differ. You may walk the streets of CB2, but I go all over this borough, and I see what is happening all over the
last time that you was in?
All right, listen, Bobby.
Well, Bobby, I think the last time I was in Community Board 2 was probably before I went on leave, and we had a meeting on site to talk about the changes that we were proposing for Westchester 165.
Right. So that's over 7 months ago.
That was 4 months ago. And remember, I did go on paternity leave, so I was out for 6 weeks. So I apologize that in the time that I was away, that I was not able to walk the streets with you. But again, I'm always up for meeting with you. I'm always up for meeting with this community board in person, in the streets, to talk about these issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So
thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, in the interest of time, and thank you, Navarro. And yes, another frustration is the fact that this, and just very quickly, I'm just going to say this, and we could just leave this, is we were told when it happened, when these were put in, oh, it's going to take X amount of time to do an analysis, and then it can be decided if it's too much or too little, and then you guys are doing. So now Keith said that you guys haven't even have not completed that, and so if we can get a general timeline on when that analysis can be finished, and can we meet and talk about it at that time, that would be greatly appreciated.
So Maria,
and-
I can actually answer that question now. When we said a year, it'll be a year in October. It'll be a
Okay.
year that the stations have been on the ground, a full calendar year, 12 months. So, we are more than happy to come back next month to discuss this.
Okay.
So I'm
Right.
sorry that wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that wasn't made clear
That's
to you in the past, but we always said, we always intended that this was we wanted a year to take a look at the data and meet with you and show you the data and sort of see what could be done.
Okay.
So-
So if we can have somebody next month come in to talk about that data, that'd be great.
We will be, I will be in attendance with my staff next month to talk about this. It would be helpful, and I'll be more than happy to put this in writing to you and to the district manager and the chair. It would be great to understand, specific concerns, or there's specific questions that you have that you want us to be able to answer next month. That would be great, but I'll make sure to put that in writing to you.
Yeah,
and the district manager.
Sure. I mean, unfortunately, you missed the begin when we talked to Keith about it previously. He got some of the brunt of this as well, and it's really just the question of going over the analysis and whether or not the amount and the way it is still necessary. And we could talk about that at another point.
We'll talk about it next month.
Yep.
We'll be back here
45
next
minutes
month.
with you guys. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
You
So,
still have Miguel
Miles-
Miles has their hand raised.
I got it, Ralph. So is this still about city bike stuff, or is this something else? Because Navarro and Justin and city planning still have a whole lot of other stuff to talk about in terms of the open restaurant.
So I'll be brief because I understand what Mr. Crespo and Mr. Lopez were saying, but I think that, to be honest with you, how do we resolve this? Well, I think you've said it already, Madam Chair. If we have the data, right? Because again, we were just told that it's popular in the Bronx, but if the analysis hasn't been done in the Bronx yet, or at least in this section of the Bronx, how do we know that it's popular here? So I think that we want to get answers to these questions. That analysis, that again, I agree with you. We were under the impression that we were going to get it a lot sooner. If we have that analysis and that data, then we can say, okay, it is popular here, then we need to rework it. If it's not popular here, then this is what needs to be done. But I think at the end of the day, lo and behold, what's needed is this analysis. It's this proven so-called data, for that 1 year data, to be able to say, okay, this is not really working here, or it's not as popular in this part of the Bronx. I'm sure it's popular up in Van Cortlandt and in that area. I get it, but it might not be as popular down here as it's assumed. So the data is at this point now is extremely important, because if not, we're just going to be going around in circles around this. Thank you.
Okay, Miles.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I think that the data, just to be very quick, is obviously very important. City Bike, in my opinion, everybody is for our district is new. So I don't think that the 1 year numbers are going to be indicative of how it will grow as a program in the district. So I just want to put that out there for everyone in my perspective. And then also for Navarro, Commissioner, when you bring the data, would it be possible to just give us information about what spots are the most popular or have the most usage at those spots? And then sort of to what Bobby was speaking about, or Chairman Crespo, is that if for some reason we feel it's oversaturated looking at the information and someone has a better idea for where the bikes could go, is it possible that things move, or is that something that is they are set there, that's the zoned location? I just don't know that answer.
I don't have an answer for that right now. I think we would first want to meet next month, show what data we have, and then at that point, make any decisions that are necessary. But I don't care to speculate right now what can and cannot be possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, all right. So I think we're going to close the door on the agenda item number 2, and we'll go back to number 1, which is Justin Lamorello and City Planning, and permanent open restaurants. So and again, for committee members, the a letter of support is requested. So let's get questions ready and pay attention. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and hello again. I'm Justin Lamorella, Senior Borough Planner from the Department of City Planning in the Bronx office. Also joined by my colleague Fernando Ortiz, the Community Engagement Associate Planner, also in my office. And from DOT, of course, Commissioner Navarro Lopez. So tonight we'll be presenting on a permanent open restaurants program. First, DOT will be presenting about the program at large. And then I will be presenting the proposed zoning text amendment to amend the zoning resolution to make sidewalk cafes legal in all locations in the city. Then at the end, of course, we'd be happy to take any questions. So with that, I will pass it off to Navarro. And if you can go to the next slide.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, Justin, and again, good evening, everybody. Actually, Justin, no, this is keep this right now. For the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to be taking us through where we are on the open restaurants program from a more programmatic standpoint. We're going to continue to give restaurants the option of sidewalk and roadway seating for outdoor dining. The program will look to better balance the many needs of the street, sidewalk, keeping both restaurants and other users in mind. We're going to take what has and what hasn't worked in the past, both pre-COVID and now during the emergency, when developing guidelines for the permanent program. I want to make clear that while this presentation, I'm going to spend time speaking about both sidewalk cafe seating and roadway seating, DOT and city planning are asking the board tonight for your opinion on the specific sidewalk cafe text amendment. This text amendment only deals with sidewalk cafes. Next slide. As you know, the city had street and sidewalk cafes before COVID, but we had far fewer of them. The majority of the program were administered by the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. DOT did run one small pilot of the public roadway seating. We call those street seats, but we only had 25 setups citywide. Most were in Manhattan, but a few were located in the Bronx. Our understanding is that the relatively low participation in the old program, the pre-COVID program, was in large part due to cost and process. Next slide. During COVID, New York City suspended existing rules through an emergency executive order, and DOT was directed to create the open restaurants program, allowing restaurants to conduct their business in the public right of way. Since launch about 1 year ago, over 11,000 restaurants have participated. This has helped save about over 100,000 jobs citywide. By many accounts, this program has been a lifesaver, not just to the restaurant industry, but also to our city that's seen outdoor dining and the incredible vitality it could bring to our sidewalks and streets. This is an innovation and a sign that our city can imagine a better future. Next slide, please. Of course, there have been, of course, there have been successes and, oh wait, no, this is the same slide I was talking about before. Can we go to slide 5? Okay, thanks. Of course, there have been successes and challenges over the past year. We've learned both positive and negative lessons in that time. and those lessons are critical to informing how we proceed with a permanent program. On the positive side, we think the robust use of the emergency program was helped by three things. First, unlike the pre-emergency sidewalk cafe program, no location was off limits. Any restaurant with ground floor frontage and sidewalk or roadway space that met the criteria was able to participate in the program. Second, the program was free and easy to access, unlike the pre-COVID sidewalk cafe program, which required many months of multiple reviews by several different agencies. And third, the element of roadway dining gave restaurants brand new options, particularly those that might not have had enough room on the sidewalk to accommodate a cafe. However, it's also worth noting a few lessons that we learned from the emergency program. First, the speed of the rollout and the fact that the program was built from scratch under emergency circumstances created some confusion. As DOT learned more about operating a program like this, and the program was extended by the mayor in the winter, some of the guidelines had to constantly change along the way to keep everyone safe. Second, throughout the program, DOT learned more about the challenges specific to the roadway seating and its interaction in the roadway. For instance, we learned from other agencies, especially the fire department and the MTA, that there were issues with turning radius of large vehicles and also complaints that safety signs were being blocked. Safety is of the utmost importance here and will remain so in the future. So we're going to continue our work with our agency partners to make sure that this program works for everybody. And third, enforcement has been a complicated problem on many different areas. On the one hand, you have restaurants who are dealing with a lot and who felt squeezed and over-inspected by too many inspectors from different agencies. On the other hand, you have some communities, particularly the mobility impaired, who are concerned about under-enforcement. Next slide. That being said, the program has seen tremendous participation. And in April, the City Council overwhelmingly voted in favor of a bill to make it permanent. This requires changing a number of different laws that control outdoor dining in non-emergency situations. Next slide. I'm going to talk a bit now about what we're proposing for the permanent program and then return to the topic of the legal changes needed to implement it. To start, we anticipate that as in the emergency, DOT will administer a permanent option for both sidewalk seating and roadway seating, with similar rules to the current sidewalk cafe, but available citywide. We want to be sensitive to the traveling public, minding clear sidewalk paths and other rules around sound and hours of operation. Next slide. When we finalize the new rules, there are going to be specific design guidelines that will be very clear and will revolve around these principles that balance the use of the sidewalk by a restaurant, but also maximize the experience of openness and activation to the general public. For most of the city, we are currently proposing requiring a minimum of 8 feet of clear sidewalk path or half the sidewalk width, whichever is greater. On some streets that are more commercial and have a lot more foot traffic, the city is proposing a 12-foot minimum path or half the sidewalk width, whichever is greater. And there are in some special cases where it still might make sense to have a sidewalk cafe despite a narrow sidewalk. We are looking to create a waiver program that will allow the minimum path on the sidewalk to go down to as low as 6 feet. But this would be co-reviewed with the Mayor's Office of Peoples with Disability. Next slide. Switching gears, we'd like to think that the introduction of the roadway option is a tremendous new opportunity for restaurants, especially those that may have narrow sidewalks and would not qualify for a sidewalk cafe. Right now, the city is working on how this will be set up permanently, but we will have setups in the parking lane, except in prohibited zones, maintain public space safety, and have clear guidance and enforcement on sound, and also comply with ADA requirements. In the future, any roadway setup will have to look a lot more what's in this slide. And in the future, we will not permit fully enclosed structures that we've seen a lot of. In looking at both moving the legal authority, next slide. In looking at moving both, I skipped ahead. The city is proposing that under the new program for outdoor dining in the roadway, it would not operate during the colder months. There might be some opportunity for a hardship waiver that would allow some restaurants to keep their setup in place year round. But for now, until we move out of the emergency program into the permanent program, all restaurants will still be able to operate uninterrupted for this upcoming winter season. Next slide. In looking both moving the legal authority to run the program to DOT and in creating a new process for the roadway setups, the city is looking to streamline the review process as much as possible, while leaving in place the essential roles of agency and public review. Next slide. To make this permanent program a reality, 3 steps are needed to advance. First, the focus for today is the removal of locational prohibitions through zoning. It is the key to unlocking the full citywide universe of applicability and consolidating control and accountability for the program under one single agency. We are also working with the City Council, who strongly support this program, to enact appropriate legislation which will update the laws governing sidewalk cafes and then create a new set of laws and rules to govern roadway cafes. Next slide. Following zoning and legal changes, we anticipate rulemaking that formalizes many of the program design and application details. And then a formal opening up of application window. We will then open up a formal application window for the new program. Though we are in the beginning of developing the future program, the current emergency program is expected to be in effect as is for the next year and a half. The expectation is that restaurants will have ample time to transition into a new process if they so choose to, with minimal operational disruption. Changing zoning is the first critical step to making this program permanent. But as you can see on this timeline, there are multiple steps to developing the full program. Each step welcomes public input and public review. Next slide. So in conclusion, COVID-19 has really shaped the way that New Yorkers think about how our streets can be used, which has been one silver lining to this pandemic. We welcome feedback and encourage everyone to visit our website to submit to us as we develop all the elements of the new permanent program. Once again, the roadway portion of this presentation is preliminary, and we'll be coming back to you to talk more about what it'll mean in the future. But our primary purpose in presenting tonight to the board is to gather feedback on city planning's proposed text amendment changes that are specifically related to sidewalk cafes. With that in mind, I'm going to turn it back to Justin to talk about those changes to the text amendment.
All right, thank you, Navardo. Next slide. Next slide. And next slide. Okay, so as was just previously discussed, there's 3 main legal processes that will create a permanent open restaurants program. The first, which is the focus of the rest of this presentation, is the removal of restrictions on sidewalk cafe locations by a zoning text amendment. Unnecessary zoning restrictions stand in the way of thousands of restaurants from participating in outdoor dining past the emergency. So this proposal would also consolidate control and accountability for the program under a single agency, the Department of Transportation. Next slide. The proposed text amendment would remove the entirety of Article 1, Chapter 4 of the zoning resolution and related text in special districts and other areas that relate to sidewalk cafes to fully remove zoning from dictating locations of sidewalk cafes. This will allow any restaurant to apply to DOT for a sidewalk cafe if they can meet the required clear path and siting criteria. Next slide. So just for a bit of context and background, in March of 2020, before the pandemic, there were roughly 27,000 restaurants of different sizes and kinds throughout the 5 boroughs. For the purpose of this presentation, we'll be focusing on ground floor restaurants with access to the street, as it's these restaurants that have the ability to apply for a sidewalk cafe. Next slide. So zoning dictated and dictates where these cafe types are allowed. You can see on this map, yellow allows only small cafe types, purple are areas where they are unenclosed, and small cafes allowed. Green is where all cafe types are allowed. And importantly, you can see a lot of areas where cafes are not allowed. Those are in red and blue. So even if the sidewalks are wide enough and conditions otherwise would allow it, sidewalk cafes are not allowed per zoning. Red are the areas specifically prohibited from having cafes, and blue are residential areas of the city. Next slide, please. So in 2020, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and indoor restrictions, the mayor issued an emergency order suspending the zoning restrictions and allowing for sidewalk cafes in all locations. To date, over 11,500 restaurants are participating in the Open Restaurants program. And in particular, the city saw a huge surge of outdoor dining occur in the outer boroughs. 10,000 of the restaurants use the sidewalk for their outdoor dining setup. Next slide, please. During the emergency program, 2,500 restaurants were permitted in areas that would have been prohibited or limited under existing zoning. But the proposed text amendment would allow them. So looking at the map on the right, in red are restaurants in specific areas that were prohibited by zoning. These are areas that include commercial mid-blocks, certain special districts, under elevated rail lines, and other named congested areas. And blue are all the grandfathered restaurants in residential areas. Zoning doesn't allow restaurants in residential zoning districts, but many of these uses predate zoning and so have remained. And we estimate there's about 2,900 of these citywide, and 1,000 of them are participating in the Open Restaurants program. Next slide, please. Other cleanup actions in the text amendment include removing definitions and cross-references to cafes, removing text that precludes operable windows that service outdoor restaurants, ensuring that no enclosure provisions require a restaurant to be fully indoors as a condition of its zoning district, and clarifying sidewalk widening text to ensure it does not conflict with the operation of the Open Restaurants program. Next slide. So zooming into Community District 2, existing sidewalk cafe regulations, you can see they're only allowed in limited areas. And so those are the green areas on this map. And those are areas such as the Vid area along Southern Boulevard, 163rd Street, and a portion of Hunts Point Avenue, to name a few. However, they're not allowed along the elevated train line like the 25 or the 6, within the Hunts Point Special District or in any residentially zoned area. So next slide. So before the pandemic, under the kind of the old program, the old rules, there were actually no sidewalk cafes in the entirety of Community District 2. Next slide. And then you can see with the Emergency Open Restaurants program, there are 20 cafes in Community District 2. 8 of them would have been prohibited under current zoning, and you can see those in red and blue on this map. And the text amendment would allow these cafes the opportunity to apply in a non-emergency setting, but only if they meet the siting rules that DOT lays out. Next slide. And so the Open Restaurants text amendment was referred out to all 59 community boards for 90 days on June 21st. After the 90-day referral period, which includes community boards, borough presidents, and borough boards, the proposal will go back to the City Planning Commission before going to City Council and the Mayor's office. We are seeking a letter of support for this amendment. And so that's the conclusion of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions along with Commissioner Lopez. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I see Ralph has his hand up. Ralphie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, Commissioner and Justin. Thank you. A lot of information there. My question is regarding sidewalk cafes with the State Liquor Authority. So there is, when you're applying for new or renewal, there is an option for a sidewalk cafe. The majority of these cafes that we're describing now do serve alcohol. Is this coinciding with the State Liquor Authority? Like, will they need to apply when they're getting a new or renewal license? Would they need to also add on that they're going to have a sidewalk cafe with the State Liquor Authority? Just curious about that. Thank you.
So I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% familiar with the SLA's procedures. I do know that we have been in coordination with them to make sure that any cafe that is serving alcohol on the sidewalk can do so legally. And that is probably something that we need to still develop a little bit more in terms of our rules, how that process is going to happen, whether they need to sort of first apply through us, or if they first need to have authorization from SLA to serve alcohol outdoors.
Yeah, because then that comes to the community board. So if someone is applying for a sidewalk cafe permit and they're already operating, they shouldn't be first selling liquor or alcohol rather, until they get approval. And that comes through the community board. So that's something that I guess we should closely monitor.
So that is something that we would need to work into the rulemaking process to make sure that alcohol can only be served in the cafe with SLA approval. And how we determine the details, we'll be coming back to sort of when we have the full program. One of the things we'll be talking about is that the application process and also the issue of alcohol. But we don't have that detail right now because we're only at the very beginning of creating a draft proposal for the permanent program.
All right, my second question is, let's say this doesn't pass or you don't get the 59 community boards approval for this. What happens? Does this come null and void? No more sidewalk cafes, no more street cafe? What's happening?
Well, I know that and Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, right now the existing rules are suspended because of the emergency declaration. So if the text amendment changes aren't approved by the boards and then later the City Planning Commission, then nothing changes. The emergency declaration is still in effect. The current emergency program continues, and what the next steps after that, I'm not sure. But right now, the text amendment, the proposed text amendment, is looking to change rules that are currently suspended. So if this doesn't pass, it doesn't change how the emergency program is operating right now. And I think one of the reasons why we want to do this is we want to begin the process. We see this as a first step to begin the process to move away from this emergency program, which was really envisioned for when we were in the height of the pandemic, and transition to a permanent program that will have clearer guidelines and stricter enforcement.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I see Mr. Crespo has his hand raised. Bobby, you're muted.
I'm sorry. What I was saying was that if anybody else has questions, I'd rather let them ask their questions first, and then I could be last. I don't have a problem.
I don't see any other hands raised, so
Okay.
you go ahead. I guess the only thing I would say is, to remind people that this is for the sidewalk cafes only and not for the street ones. So I know we have a lot more questions about the street ones, but this text amendment is just for the sidewalk ones.
Commissioner, you had stated that DOT will have the option to review this project. Can you please define what you meant by that? What options would you be looking at?
So right now, before the emergency, the program was run through Consumer Affairs, and since COVID, it's been DOT that's been administering this program, meaning that restaurants apply through our website, they self-certify, and then in conjunction with the buildings department, we've been going out and doing inspections. That'll change with a permanent program. One of the things we're looking to do is change the application process to make it more robust. And the details for that are still being developed, so I don't have specifics about that. Okay. But I do envision that when we show you the draft proposal for the permanent program, we're going to talk about what the future application process is going to be, which will be different than what happens now. In terms of enforcement, we intend to create a new unit within the agency that will be specifically dedicated with inspectors whose sole focus will be on open restaurants. That's not the case right now. Right now, we have been borrowing, internally, other inspectors, our highway inspectors, our sidewalk inspectors, to sort of monitor the program, and that's caused issues with enforcing on a timely manner. That's going to change come the permanent program. We're going to have a dedicated unit that solely deals with this issue, which means that we'll be able to respond a lot faster with inspections. And then, of course, the parallel to that is creating a potential violation schedule. Right now, we issue warnings, and our most extreme warning violation is a cease and desist letter. We expect that we will have more robust enforcement options, which may include fines.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I hear what you're saying, but nowhere do I hear in this process of how, since it's something that's going to affect the community, I see and I have not heard a review process by the community board. At least the state liquor authority lets us review the application and advise them on how we feel. All I hear now is DOT and city planning. DOT and city planning. I don't hear no function of the community.
Well, when we come back next year to speak about the permanent program, when we have a draft proposal, at that time, I think we'll have more information about how we're going to work in community review with these applications. Again, I don't have the details for that yet because we're only at the beginning of the process, but we're going to be coming back to talk about what community review in the future will mean. So I know that's an important part of the prior COVID program had a community review. Obviously, because of the emergency, that piece was not included. But we're gonna, we have a very long time before we have a permanent program. I mean, we're envisioning that this process is going to take up to a year and a half, which means that there'll be multiple opportunities to speak to communities about what review will look like in the future.
And you said the time clock was a 90-day time clock, right? Which was in July.
That's for the text amendment review.
The text amendment review.
The text amendment review, and I'll let city planning jump in if they need to, but the text amendment review is only about removing the restrictions in the zoning text. So right now, the zoning text restricts where we can have sidewalk cafes. Right now, those rules are suspended because of the emergency,
we want what city planning and DOT are looking to do is to permanently remove the restrictions in the zoning text on sidewalk cafes. There are actually no restrictions at all in the zoning text on roadway seating.
Right.
The zoning text only regulates and restricts sidewalk cafes.
Right. So then we're now in September. 90 days will be up probably in about another week or two. And that's, you're asking us to review this, and we just got the presentation. We had the text amendment, but every time we spoke with city planning, it was, oh, well, we're not ready yet. Oh, we're not ready yet. Oh, we're not ready yet. And now you come 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks before the 90 days are up for our review process, and you want us to respond to this by the end of this month. I mean, I mean, this is a continuous problem that the city has, and I don't know if this is throughout the county, but I know that within community board too, it's always we come in at the last minute. We have to come in at the last minute. Doesn't even give us time to speak to our colleagues in the other boards to see how they feel about this text amendment. The last text amendment that I remember of, I went to vote on it, which was the hotel in M1 zone areas. And when I went to make my recommendations, it was, oh, well, your other colleagues already approved it, so we're not going to put your amendment into the text amendment. I mean, really, you're not giving us time for us, if we're not happy with this, to review it with other colleagues in the other boards.
Yeah, I hear you, and I understand that it's, a tight time frame. But it was certified at, towards the end of June.
Exactly. And Justin, and how many times have we not spoken? How many times has Ralph not spoken to you about this? How many times have we dealt with a lot of stuff before June, and then on June it was like the clock stopped. You guys approved this text amendment and then present it to us, and then when we're ready to look at it, you're telling us, oh, we're not ready to make presentation. We're not ready to make presentation. What kind of nonsense is this?
I think so. It was referred in on June 21st. So there wasn't a committee for us to present to after that until September.
No, that's not true, sir. That is not true, because we had our executive committee ready to review it at all times during the month of July and August. So that is not true.
Okay. I apologize. We could have come to those committees. Normally we come to, housing land use, or, to this committee, economic development, and weren't aware that those committees were meeting during the summer. And in the future, if you would like us to meet or bring something that's under, something like a ULURP clock during the summer, we can definitely make that happen. But, I was not aware that is what you all wanted to hear over the summer. But, in the future, happy to do that.
Forget it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Okay, any other comments? I don't see.
I have a
any
comment.
hands
I
up.
have one more comment just regarding this. My concern is going back to, like, this is a text amendment. You're looking to change the laws regarding this, basically, right? And just because a restaurant qualifies to have the sidewalk cafe doesn't necessarily mean that it warrants it. That's when the community board input comes into value, because they could be a nuisance in the community, right? We have locations in our district that, we entertained last night a renewal of a liquor license. This location had, within 2 years, 83 911 calls. And I can see them applying for a sidewalk cafe. And here we are, we're having difficulties with them. And in essence, they're getting rewarded also. So I really think that I understand changing the codes and the variances, if it becomes permanent. But I really feel that the community board should have input because we know these businesses in our district and our communities, and some of them, there's a lot of issues, a lot of challenges that they present. I think that has to be considered at the end of the day, because like I said, they can qualify to have the sidewalk cafe, but is it in the interest of the community that they do if they're already not adhering to stipulations set forth, and taking valuable resources away from the precinct? That's something that we need to really consider. And I think going forward, there has to be input from the community board regarding these establishments looking to get on the sidewalk. I think it's a reward for them, right? Now we're hopefully generating revenue for them. However, they're not conducting business properly within the community and within the law of the city of New York. So I just think going forward, community boards should have some input with this.
Okay,
And
so,
Ralph, I think, and just, sorry, Marie, just to respond, I think, we're in agreement with you, Ralph, that, that's why we want to start this process, because right now, under the emergency program, there isn't that mechanism. What we want to do with the formal sidewalk and roadway cafe program is create that ability to better take community input, to better respond to community input. But we need to, we don't want to keep this emergency program operating indefinitely. We want to have a set end so we can start transitioning from this current program, which was envisioned during the COVID emergency, to a more formalized program, which has a more formalized process that can include community input. And my hope is that when we come back to the public to talk about the formal program, because the first step is showing you what our draft proposal is, that we'll be able to talk about that in more detail then.
Great, thank you, Commissioner.
Maria, just one quick question to the commissioner or to Justin. If this amendment passes and it's only for sidewalks, according to Maria, this is only for sidewalks, what are you guys going to do with the street side where they're taking up spaces?
So right now, we envision that the emergency program is going to stay in effect. Both the sidewalk and roadway cafes are going to stay in effect at least until 2023.
23.
So 23, because it's going to take time to create a new set of rules, because it's not, as I mentioned in the presentation, and actually, Justin, can you go back to the slide that talks about the various regulatory changes and the timeline for that? I think that was like slide 13 or 14. Okay, so here we go. So this is what we envision the timeline is going to look like for the next year and a half. While we are developing the permanent proposal, while there's going to be, the various legal actions that need to happen, both laws passed by the city council, rule-making changes by DOT, and then the creation of a new application process, we envision that during that time, we're going to keep the emergency program in effect. We don't want to sort of pull the rug out from under these businesses that have been operating cafes since the pandemic started. So we want to create an orderly transition process. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to permit in the future fully enclosed roadway cafes. So we want to give time for the restaurants to take those down. And if they do apply and qualify for roadway seating in the future, give them time to transition from their current setup to a future setup that complies with the new rules that we'll be making. So right now, the emergency program, we plan to keep that in effect until 23. So that's why we want to start this process in terms of changing the rules as soon as possible. The faster we can get through these regulatory changes, the sooner we can transition away from this program, which has the challenges that you've pointed out, which many others have pointed out, and that we are aware of. We could transition to a permanent program that I think addresses a lot of concerns that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so just to be clear with what you just said, and I apologize, my dogs might be barking in the background. So we're voting on this text amendment. This is it'll go into effect, but then you said the more permanent program wouldn't really take place until maybe 2023, in which case, but before that, can we ensure that there would be some sort of community input, or do we have to wait for the permanent program for that to take
Well,
effect?
well before the permanent program, I mean, the next step for DOT is to develop a draft proposal, which we will then be circulating publicly. So during this timeline that I'm showing right here, we envision that there'll be multiple opportunities for community input and review before we finalize the formal program. Because, whenever we do rulemaking, that also the CAPA process, which is how city agencies change their rules, has a formal, it's a notification period, a public hearing, and a window and a comment window. But beyond that, we plan on doing additional outreach, and we envision providing additional opportunities for comment before we start that CAPA process. So this is only the first of what I expect to be many meetings that DOT is going to be having with communities throughout the city over the next year and a half.
Okay, and so for tonight, Justin or Navarro, who has the wording of the letter of support that you would like? What is it exactly that you would like to see from this committee?
So a letter of support to amend the zoning resolution for the open restaurants program. Fernando, do you have the exact wording?
Hello, I do not have the exact wording on hand. You're talking about the referral that was sent out? What's the exact ask?
Yes, let me just pull it up real quick.
And this letter of support is going to whom? City Council?
The City Planning Commission. Let me just pull up this real quick. So the kind of the language that went with the referral said, New York City Department of City Planning, together with New York City Department of Transportation, is proposing a zoning text amendment to facilitate a component of a permanent citywide open restaurants program. Then it goes on to say, specifically, the zoning text amendment would delete Article 1, Chapter 4 of the zoning resolution in its entirety, which would have the effect of removing geographic limitations to where restaurants can apply for sidewalk cafes. I can copy and paste this in the chat.
Does Ralph have that copy of that? Justin?
If you put it in the whole text of what Justin just said?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Ralph should have received the referral after the June 21st referral of this text amendment.
Okay, so
with me,
does anybody have? And he also put something. Justin just put stuff in the chat. I guess you could copy and paste that.
Maria, do your roll call. You have quorum.
I do.
Okay.
I got a good crew tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So before we vote, because we have Selvis, Miguel, LaShawn, myself, and Miles. So we got like 5 out of.
You got
seven,
Delvis also.
Yeah, I said Selvis. Hey, Selvis was first. Was you here first? Okay. Um,
All right, I just wanted to make sure.
sure. Okay, Miles.
Got 5 out of 6 right now.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
Way to start the year, people. All right. So before we vote, do any committee members have any questions or anything else that they need clarified? Okay, Miguel, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just have a question. Being that, two questions. One, does the measure have to be voted on tonight? Couldn't we see the letter first as it's put together and then vote on this matter on the next meeting? Or does it have to be, I mean, we don't have the letter. I mean, we see what's in the chat, but if it has to be done today, then so be it. I'm just asking the question.
Well, I wanted just to point out here that we don't even have to vote on this. They're looking for it. They're treating it as a ULURP, but necessarily community boards do not have to support it, approve it, deny it, or object to it. So the presentation was made, and if I'm not mistaken, it's 5 text amendments. This is the last of the. This is the 5th one, and all 5 are being treated the same, where presentations are being made to community boards, and then the community board can decide if they want to vote on it or not. So I hope that answers your question a little, Miguel. But we don't, we could vote. We don't have to vote. You want to wait for more information? That's up to you guys. But I just wanted to make sure that you have the facts. And Justin and Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong with that.
Thank you, Ralph.
This is Fernando speaking, Ralph. You are correct in what you just said. That is right.
So again, we can vote on this. I mean, but also, like Ralph said, it's not completely necessary. Or can we put our own stamp on it and say we agree?
That's the thing. We can
do this,
try to.
And
I'm sorry.
But if we can
make
say
it
like. Go ahead, Ralph. Well, what I want to say just really quick is we could vote on it and we could say we vote for this, but we strongly urge that a community response component be added to this provision in the very near future. And that's like, we're saying yes, but we're also putting in our 2 cents of what, really concerns us the most about this. So if anybody wants to make those additions. And so, Selvis, I see your hand is up, but Ralph, is there anything you want to say, or did I say?
I just want to point of reference that we can vote. We can vote on it and try to make it community specific, but remember that this is a citywide text amendment. So this is something that is going to be implemented across the city. So I don't know if they're going to take stipulations or amendments into consideration.
Ralph, similar to what we do with, that we always say with the SLA, if we don't say something, it's not said, it's not on record, our concerns are not heard. I think that we can always reach out to our borough commissioner, reach out to our council member to let them know our feelings. And I think that what Maria is saying is correct, that we really want a strong position for the community boards throughout this process. And I think that if you vote on it, it should be voted on with the caveat of that we want to be involved throughout the process, not to just be here, we're doing this there and letting us know. No, let us review it, let us be part of it, let us inform you, and let us vote on it before anything gets done. I think that that's the best way to deal with this. So you're right, Ralph, that it's a citywide, but we have to be on record. And I think that that's why I say we have not been given the opportunity to speak to our colleagues, even throughout the city, about this, because I don't know if they've noticed that boards don't have any role in this, but we have the opportunity to put it on in writing. Thank you,
Yes,
Maria.
and I just want to echo that we're definitely supportive of adding, any qualifications or modifications or things of that nature. And kind of to that point, your recommendation would travel on, to the city council, where city council members and your local council member, of course, would look at it. So, it while it is a citywide text amendment, you can ensure that your voice is making its way through the rest of the non-ULURP process.
Okay, thank you. And Selvas, you have your hand up.
Hey, Cynthia, thank you. And this just reminds me of as they were decentralizing Rikers Island, and I think they chose to put it over in our district, even though we didn't choose to. But one of the things for sure, echoing Mr. Crespo, we put it in writing, and Ralph and those guys knew, and Ralph kept the fire going because we made it, a point to let them know our viewpoint. So, I think that, even though it's going to take action in place anyway, regardless, having our point of view on record, I think is highly important. That was my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, so does anybody from the committee want to just put in the exact wording of that provision, and then we can make motions? And so I believe it's the letter of support. We could transcribe what the whole thing is. However, with the provision that community response be added, or community participation. I don't know. I mean, I had it before, but I don't have it now in my brain. Bobby, did you have the wording that you wanted to, like, for an amendment that you wanted to put in, or no?
I think Elvis had put it in the perfect way, and I think that Elvis should make the motion because he had the perfect wording. All I'm saying is that we should be part of the entire process and let us review it and vote on it and give input into the locations that they select. I think that that's most important in this, and I think that Elvis had put it in proper perspective, and I think that he should make the motion, even though you can make the motion and Elvis can second it also. Hello?
Okay. Elvis, are you still there? I don't see him now. You may have. Oh,
Yeah, he's still around.
okay.
Elvis, are you there?
Elvis, you're muted. If you can hear us, you muted yourself.
Okay.
I think you can do it, and then maybe Miles or Miguel can second it, or LaShawn.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to say is I'm putting out for the motion that a letter of support to amend the zoning resolution for the open restaurants, the sidewalk cafes, with the provision that community boards have input into applications for approval. How's that? And then
also,
that's open for seconding, or so forth.
I second.
Miguel seconded.
Okay. All those in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
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 Any opposed? I guess that's the most important one. Any opposed? And any abstention? Okay, so then this passes unanimously. And so we'll be at the full board, I believe, which is September 29th. Correct, Ralph?
Correct, the 29th.
And I guess we'll go through this again on the 29th and for full board approval. Okay. Thank you, Justin and Fernando. Nice to see you. Navardo, thank you for your time. We'll be talking again. We'll see you again next month.
Navardo,
he
Navardo,
apologized.
you know I love you, right?
We've been going through this for a very, very long time. I measure every encounter with you how mad you.
Right? Since the placard days.
Right. I was going to say, I measure every encounter with how mad you are compared to how mad you were when I took away parking permits. You weren't that mad tonight, so I think we're good.
I just wear my heart on my sleeve. That's all.
I love you for it, Bobby. I love you for it because that, no one could ever doubt your commitment to the community, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're up to old business. And
Madam Chair, let's just go on record for number 3. We invited on the Angel Wings. They were aware of it, and they reached out to Cynthia, the office, earlier today that they're not going to be able to make it. So I just want to go on record that we did invite them, and we'll see, what they're going to talk about for next month. So I just want to go on record for that. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I forgot about that. Okay, got you. Old business. Do we do old business? I think it's blocking. Yes, old business first. Any old business? None. Okay. New business. I hear something.
Miles with his hand raised.
Oh, Miles.
Um,
Go ahead, Miles.
I think
Hi.
Effie also wants to say something.
Effie, you want to go first?
It's okay. I don't mind. Mine is just a quickie. Sorry. I just wanted to say, with the heavy rains and storms that we've been having, from your district, I did not get that many complaints, but I just wanted to say that DEP prepared for the storm, by scheduling extra crews to deal with flooding locations and complaints. We check our catch basins and storm sewers at known flooding locations, and we bring in crews and equipment for deployment and response. Our field ups was out there with pumps and Vector trucks ahead of time at many of the severe flooding locations. Our crews were responding to 311 complaints to clear blocked catch basins and pump out locations, as well as our crews were at locations where there's tidal flooding. The type of storm we had this time was a little different than Hurricane Sandy, where it was mostly a tidal type of storm. This one was a lot of intense rainfall. So a lot of people had issues with basement floodings and things of that nature. I just wanted to touch up on that, since that was a major issue that we've had for the past 2 weeks. A lot of people have been calling in complaints about that. Anybody who incurred any property damage, and during the storm, they should file a New York City Controller claim form, as well as FEMA. I believe there's funding through FEMA, so they should file claim forms with them as well. That's all I wanted to say, unless you have questions for me.
Effie, all I'd like to know, if you can provide the board with, I know that you're doing all the maintenance stuff right now, but when will our board be inspected for the sewers and the cleanup? If we can get a schedule of when a possible schedule of that happening, so like that we could be ahead of the game also.
We usually provide that at every budget consultations. We let you know where we are in which community board, and when we were last at your board, and when the repairs and all that. So we'll definitely have that schedule up in a few weeks when we meet for budget consultations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miles?
Yes. Thank you, Effie, for that. Okay. Miles, new business?
Thank you, Effie at DEP too, because it's been a crazy couple weeks for y'all, so I appreciate it. What I wanted to bring up, and I have brought it up in the past, but it was a while ago, and I just want to keep it on this committee's mind is that lot on Whitlock. Whitlock and Bruckner, is that like right at the Bruckner there, that corner lot? I know I brought it up before, but I mean, it's getting absolutely disgusting, to be honest. I mean, there's just mattresses, there are people doing lots of inappropriate and illegal things back there all day. And from the bids perspective, it is one of the main entrances, especially now with all the traffic closures. And I don't know how we can get them to either like clean out the lot or like, you know, seal it out, because it's just, I could walk in there any time of day. Yeah, I just want to know, put that out there.
You're talking about the lot when the train dips in, not under the train, but if you're driving up on the right-hand side, correct?
Hold on.
Where the housing construction is supposed to go.
Yes,
correct?
yes.
725 Woodlock. Okay, Miles, can you do me a favor? If you send
Yeah.
me an email with your concerns, I'll forward it. We know the owners. That's Mark Stagg. So
Right.
I'll send it to Mark right away.
Okay, yeah, you know, it's like Whitlock and Longfellow where the playground is you know, if you keep going down to Bruckner, you know what we're talking about. All this Longfellow, Whitlock, that building there.
We know exactly what you're saying. We've been on top of the city.
I feel bad because I don't have the number handy, but I'm just like, I keep getting earfuls about it, so I just
email Miles, please email me. I will, include you in the email when I send it to them. So no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business? Okay. So with that, it is 7:50.
I just want to acknowledge that Raymond Arroyo was on, and we still have Anthony Rodriguez. Those are two new community board members. Just want to acknowledge that they're present here with us. They haven't been assigned any committees, but it was nice for them to be here. So I want to shout out Raymond and Anthony.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. With there being no other new business, I guess I'm going to call this to adjourn. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Is anybody to second?
I second it.
Okay. And with that, I believe this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.
Anthony Jordan, my man. Thank you, Anthony Jordan, for being with us also. Friend of the community board. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for running. Very good meeting.
All right, thank you. I got you all right before 8. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good night.